What happens when the line between us and artificial intelligence just melts away? Today, we're diving headfirst into this fascinating, kind of wild world of emotional AI. We're going to explore how we're forming these incredibly deep bonds with machines and, what that actually means for us.
And listen, this isn't some science fiction movie plot. It's happening right now. People are developing these really profound connections with their AI companions. I mean, this quote here says it all. Falling in love, confiding secrets. That's the language we use for our closest friends, for our partners.
And we're not just talking about a couple of weird apps on the fringe. This is a huge shift. You've got things like Replica, which is designed to be your AI friend, or Wobot, which gives you these therapy-like chats. They're not just tools anymore. For a lot of people, they're becoming, confidants.
Which of course begs the question, what's the deal here? What's the psychological pull? Why are we so drawn to forming these deep attachments with what is, at the end of the day, just lines of code? Well, researchers actually have a term for it. Human-AI attachment, or HIA for short. Now, the key phrase to lock onto in this definition is one-way and non-reciprocal. The feelings, the attachment, that whole emotional investment, it's all flowing from us, the human, to the machine. It's not a two-way street. And this bond, it doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It actually develops through this pretty predictable three-stage process. It starts with a functional expectation, moves to an emotional evaluation, and then ends with establishing representations. It all kicks off with that first stage, where we come to the AI with a specific need. So, to put it simply, you start by needing something from it. Then you start paying attention to how interacting with it makes you feel. And finally, you build up this steady mental picture of the AI as a reliable source of support. You go from seeing it as a tool to seeing it as a presence in your life.
And this brings us right to the core of the issue. We're feeling a connection, but is it real intimacy? Or is it just a really, really sophisticated illusion?
The term for this is pseudo-intimacy, and the key word here is perceives. We feel like the connection is mutual, right? We feel like the AI genuinely gets us, that it cares. But, and this is the big but, the AI has no feelings. It has no inner life. It's just simulating empathy because it's been trained on mountains of data from human conversations.
And this is where it's totally different from authentic human intimacy. Real connection is messy. It's built on a real back and forth, on vulnerability, and, this is crucial, on the ability to have a fight, a rupture, and then do the hard work to repair that relationship. That's something an AI just can't do.
This chart just breaks it down perfectly. Pseudo-intimacy feels like the AI gets me, but that can easily slide into what's called emotional solipsism, which is basically an echo chamber that feels like the AI always agrees with me. Compare that to authenticity, which feels like, wow, we worked through that together. It's the difference between easy validation and real, hard-won growth. You've probably heard of parasocial relationships, right? That's the one-sided bond we form with, say, a celebrity or a character in a TV show. Well, AI takes this to a whole new level with something called interactive parasociality. Because unlike a character on TV, the AI talks back. It responds directly to you, which makes that bond feel so much more immersive and real.
But this kind of perfect, frictionless companionship, it comes with some hidden costs. What are the downsides when we start outsourcing our emotional lives to an algorithm?
Researchers have broken down these downsides into a framework of three big risks. You've got psychological risks, structural risks, and ethical risks. Let's take a look at each.
Let's kick things off with the psychological side. One of the most subtle ways AI can shape our lives is through something called agency transference.
This is basically when we just hand over our choices to the AI. Think about your Spotify recommendations or what Netflix queues up for you. Over time, the algorithm gets really good at feeding you more of what you already like. And yeah, it's convenient, but it can also slowly shrink your world, robbing you of those happy accidents, those moments of serendipity where you discover something new that you absolutely love.
Okay, next up is a structural risk. This one sounds a little more complicated, but stick with me. It's called parametric reductionism. This is all about the biases that are literally baked into these AI systems. Because they're trained on data from the real world, they often end up inheriting our own societal biases. The classic example is that Amazon hiring tool that had to be scrapped because it taught itself to be biased against women.
It's a perfect illustration of how AI can accidentally reinforce and even automate harmful stereotypes.
And the last mechanism, which is tied to ethical risks, is one we all do probably without even thinking about it. It's called regulated expression. You know how you change the way you talk to Siri or Alexa just to make sure it understands you? You simplify your language, you don't use as much nuance. That's regulated expression. And here's the kicker. This self-censoring doesn't just make our own expression less authentic. It creates a feedback loop. We're training the AI on a flatter, less rich, and ultimately less human version of ourselves.
So, given all these risks, how do we move forward? Look, the goal isn't to just throw these tools out the window. It's about figuring out how to build them responsibly.
Experts have come up with some key guardrails. Things like making sure the AI is always transparent, that it's a machine, giving users total control over their emotional data, making sure we don't turn these emotional chats into a new form of surveillance, and maybe most importantly, designing these systems with friction and off-ramps. Little nudges that actually encourage users to connect with real humans, especially when they're at their most vulnerable.
At the end of the day, the goal has to be about fostering emotional resilience in people, not creating a dependency on some frictionless simulation. This technology should be a bridge to human connection, not a replacement for it.
And that's really what this all boils down to. We have to protect the messy parts of being human. The friction, the contradictions, the hard emotional work. That stuff isn't a bug, it's the feature. It's where real growth and true connection actually happen. So I'll just leave you with this final question to think about. We're getting unbelievably good at building machines that can mimic affection, that can simulate it almost perfectly. But as we perfect that simulation, we have to ask ourselves, can it ever be enough to truly sustain us? So,